The FBI says 15 people have now been arrested, including members of a violent Tacoma Street gang, as part of a massive fentanyl trafficking bust in Pierce County.
Where that this was a vulnerability for their operation, and we're taking steps to protect it.
Federal and local law enforcement have just taken down one of the most organized and dangerous drug networks operating in the Pacific Northwest. After an 18-month investigation, the FBI and Homeland Security Investigations dismantled a Tacoma-based fentanyl operation linked to the violent Knockout Crips street gang. The takedown, part of a coordinated multi-state sweep, resulted in 15 arrests, 13 search warrants, and the seizure of large quantities of fentanyl, methamphetamine, weapons, and cash. Investigators say this was not just about stopping drugs. It was about ending the cycle of violence that came with them. For nearly 2 years, agents tracked the gang's every move, from stash houses in Tacoma to luggage carousels at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and what they uncovered was staggering. Officials say the group had engineered a professional smuggling system that moved fentanyl pills from Phoenix, Arizona, into Washington state using commercial flights and everyday travelers. Many of those couriers were women, recruited through social media or personal connections, and promised easy money for quick trips. They were instructed to fill luggage with shrink-wrapped packages of fentanyl powder and pressed pills, soak the bags in perfume to mask the odor, and board flights bound for SeaTac. Once the drugs arrived, local distributors working for the Knockout Crips collected the shipments, broke them down, and pushed the product into Pierce County's neighborhoods. This was not a loose street crew. Analysts describe it as a structured trafficking pipeline, organized, disciplined, and ruthless in protecting its roots and profits. The scale of the takedown stunned even veteran agents. On the morning of the raids, more than 100 officers from the FBI, HSI, DEA, and the South Sound Safe Streets Task Force converged on multiple targets across Tacoma, Lakewood, and surrounding communities. Tactical teams breached doors, flashbangs echoed through residential streets, and armored vehicles sealed off intersections as suspects were pulled from homes and vehicles in coordinated succession. By midday, 15 people were in custody, including gang coordinators, couriers, and local dealers. This was a complete network removal, one senior agent said. We didn't just arrest users or pushers. We dismantled the entire pipeline feeding this region.
We're able to engage in the assaults, the drive-by shootings, and the other violent activity that they were engaged in to protect their drug trade.
Federal prosecutors confirmed the case began after a wave of fatal overdoses in Pierce County. Each scene featured identical blue M30 tablets that laboratory testing later confirmed contained fentanyl traced back to the same source. The pattern pointed investigators toward a single organization controlling both supply and distribution. What started as a local overdose review quickly expanded into one of Washington's largest gang trafficking investigations. Over months of surveillance, wiretaps, and undercover operations, agents uncovered communications between Tacoma-based gang leaders and Phoenix area suppliers coordinating shipments. Some routes extended eastward to Baltimore, revealing the network's reach far beyond the Pacific Northwest. When the final warrants were executed, the results told the story in numbers. 2.6 kilograms of fentanyl, 6.8 kilograms of methamphetamine, 228 grams of cocaine, 27 kilograms of marijuana, and 23 firearms, several of them stolen, were seized. More than $111,000 in cash was recovered from stash houses, vehicles, and hidden compartments inside walls. Agents also collected ledgers, burner phones, and encrypted messages that mapped out every stage of the operation. The evidence showed a gang treating fentanyl like currency, trading death for profit and power. Officials say the bust will save countless lives by cutting off one of the largest fentanyl supply lines into Washington state. The FBI called the takedown a cornerstone of Operation Summer Heat, a national campaign targeting violent gangs and narcotics traffickers in U.S. cities. Officials said the Tacoma case captured the mission's purpose: swift, coordinated action that cripples criminal economies before they expand. What unfolded in Pierce County, they warned, is not an isolated case. It is part of a wider battle being fought neighborhood by neighborhood, airport by airport. And this week, the traffickers who believed they could hide inside airport crowds learned that federal eyes were on them every step of the way. The case that ended in Tacoma's dawn raids began quietly months earlier, inside a federal wire room. Agents from the South Sound Safe Streets Task Force sat in darkness, listening to fragments of coded conversations bounce between phones in Tacoma and Phoenix. Each call used slang to disguise intent: tickets, packages, flights. What sounded routine was actually scheduling, when couriers would depart, how loads were packed, and who would collect the cash once they landed. The FBI recorded every word. For 8 weeks, analysts built a digital map of the network, tracing supply lines from cartel brokers in Arizona to neighborhood dealers in Washington. When agents confirmed the timing of multiple shipments through SeaTac Airport, the green light was given for full-scale interdiction. The takedown unfolded with precision. Before sunrise, teams from the FBI, HSI, DEA, ATF, and Tacoma Police hit 13 locations simultaneously. Streets were sealed. Armored vehicles rolled in. Agents moved through doors using breaching charges and tactical shields. Every team carried live intelligence on tablets: who lived inside, where weapons might be hidden, how many exits each property had. Within minutes, suspects were pinned to the ground, and code words were replaced by the clatter of handcuffs. Inside the houses, investigators found what months of surveillance had promised: narcotics stacked in duffel bags, digital scales, cash counters, and weapons wrapped in towels. Some firearms were traced back to burglary reports, others had their serial numbers filed off. Every seized item told the same story: a gang turning narcotics into an industry. As arrests spread across Tacoma, prosecutors in Seattle unsealed a 10-count federal indictment. 9 primary defendants were charged with conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. 5 more were charged through criminal complaints after agents found drugs or weapons during the raids. Each faces a mandatory minimum of 10 years because of the volume of fentanyl involved and the presence of firearms. Federal officials emphasized that this was not just a local case. Intelligence tied the Knockout Crips network to regional suppliers who moved product through Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Denver before it reached Washington. Evidence suggests that at least one Phoenix supplier maintained cartel links, making the Tacoma crew a critical distribution branch within a wider pipeline feeding multiple western states. Investigators say violence kept that pipeline alive. Members enforced discipline through shootings, robberies, and intimidation of witnesses. Several defendants were already suspects in homicides and drive-by attacks connected to turf disputes. Ballistics recovered from 2 seized pistols matched shell casings from separate crime scenes in Pierce County. For law enforcement, that connection reinforced why the operation mattered. Every shipment of drugs carried not only poison, but the promise of more bloodshed. Each pill sold funded another gun, one senior agent said. Cutting the supply wasn't just about narcotics, it was about saving lives on both ends of the barrel. Behind the scenes, coordination was relentless. The operation ran through the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces, OCDETF framework, uniting federal prosecutors with more than a dozen agencies, including IRS Criminal Investigations and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. Analysts tracked wire transfers, parcel shipments, and cash deposits that funneled profits back to Phoenix. The evidence allowed financial teams to freeze multiple accounts and seize vehicles purchased with drug proceeds. Officials said this intelligence-driven, prosecutor-led model is the future of gang enforcement: fast data, coordinated raids, and immediate financial disruption. By day's end, the results were clear. 15 defendants in custody, 13 warrants executed, dozens of weapons and kilograms of narcotics seized. For Tacoma's neighborhoods, it meant silence replacing gunfire. For federal agencies, it proved that multi-jurisdictional coordination could dismantle a violent street network operating like a miniature cartel. "This is how you fight organized crime in America now," said a Homeland Security official. "You trace the phones, hit the doors, take the money, and shut the route down before the next flight lands." In the days following the Tacoma raids, federal officials called the case a benchmark for how multi-agency enforcement should look in the era of synthetic narcotics. Operation Summer Heat, the nationwide FBI initiative that coordinated the takedown, was built around one idea: to treat violent drug networks as domestic insurgencies and strike them before they could adapt. The Tacoma case embodied that philosophy. It used intelligence before muscle, precision before publicity, and teamwork over territory. Agents from the FBI, HSI, DEA, and ATF worked alongside local partners in Tacoma, Lakewood, and Pierce County with a single goal: shut down the entire fentanyl corridor that had turned parts of the Pacific Northwest into overdose zones. Federal leaders said the operation wasn't just another bust, it was a prototype for how to fight the fentanyl epidemic city by city, route by route. Officials described the impact as immediate. Within 48 hours of the arrests, the 3,100-block corridors in East Tacoma that once buzzed with hand-to-hand drug deals went silent. Known dealers vanished from the corners. Addicts who relied on the knockout supply chain found their sources gone. Community patrols that once hesitated to enter certain neighborhoods began walking the streets again. Residents who had watched overdoses in parking lots now saw federal agents recovering evidence and local crews painting over graffiti. People can finally sleep without hearing gunfire, one resident told reporters. Authorities say the change is fragile but real, proof that when violent networks are removed in one sweep, neighborhoods can begin to heal. The seizures told another story: the economics behind the violence. Over $111,000 in cash was recovered, along with vehicles, jewelry, and electronic ledgers, showing profits recycled into new shipments. Financial analysts within the IRS Criminal Investigations Division traced deposits to multiple accounts in Arizona, leading to the freezing of nearly $300,000 in suspected drug proceeds. Federal officials believe the gang laundered money through small businesses and prepaid debit cards to mask its profits. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is now working with bank compliance officers to track residual funds that may connect Tacoma distributors to suppliers in the Southwest. Every dollar we seize, one analyst said, is a bullet they can't buy and a plane ticket they can't book. Law enforcement leaders stress that this operation is only one piece of a larger war. Fentanyl distribution networks adapt fast, shifting couriers, airlines, and smuggling routes within days of a major bust. For that reason, Operation Summer Heat teams remain on alert across the Pacific Corridor. Agents in Seattle and Portland are monitoring airports, shipping centers, and interstate highways for copycat operations, attempting to fill the gap left by the knockout Crips collapse. Homeland Security sources confirmed that additional search warrants have already been issued in Phoenix, where suppliers are believed to have sourced the seized pills. Federal task forces are also targeting the manufacturing side. Counterfeit pill labs in Arizona and California that press fentanyl into M30 tablets destined for street markets nationwide. For the Justice Department, the Tacoma takedown symbolizes a new enforcement era, one where data, surveillance, and field operations merge into a single strike. Acting U.S. Attorney Teal Luthi Miller said in a statement that the success was not measured only in arrests or drugs seized, but in the interruption of a death economy that fed off addiction. Every gram of fentanyl we stopped means one less overdose, one less funeral, one less family destroyed, she said. Federal officials confirmed that additional summer heat operations are already scheduled across the Pacific Northwest and the Southwest Corridor, targeting networks still moving synthetic drugs by air and ground. As the dust settles in Tacoma, the message from federal agents is simple: the game has changed. The era of open-air drug markets protected by gangs and fueled by cross-state pipelines is ending. Law enforcement now moves faster, hits harder, and coordinates deeper than ever before. The traffickers who once hid behind street names, burner phones, and airport crowds are running out of places to disappear. This time, the hunt came to their doorstep, and it won't stop until every link in the chain is gone.